The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I got another exciting guest. So we're going to be talking about operations today and how to improve your operations. I know it sounds boring, right, for me and Garrett, but Garrett's going to make it exciting. We're going to talk about, I think, technology, right, all that type of stuff. And so if you are listening on your favorite directory and you can, leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the channel, subscribe, and keep us connecting to all the cool people that we're meeting these days. So let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Garrett, let me turn that up a little bit. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you're low again. I don't know what happened.
No way.
Yeah, well, lean into the mic. Let's eat the mic today.
I'm right on. Okay, just maybe sit right on top of it.
Exactly. I don't know what it is. Maybe the Riverside doesn't like your mic. It's too good.
Oh,
you have
boy.
a nice mic. All right, so let's talk about, because we're going one of the things, my pet peeves is that, people don't pay attention to their operations, and as they grow, they got all kinds of problems, and they definitely can't scale if they don't have operations in place and all the stuff you're going to talk about. Maybe we can go back though and talk about your background in business and corporate and all that kind of stuff to get us to where we are
Sure.
Today. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great, Mitch.
Okay.
So, well, first of all, I want to comment this listening to the opening of your show.
Yeah.
And how
the crazy disclaimer at the beginning.
Well, that's a good one. Real good one. But I'm biased, right? But I appreciate your thoughts on, businesses don't succeed by accident.
That's true.
They
do not.
They just don't. As a matter of fact,
right.
They go out of business 9 out of 10 times by accident.
I mean, that's the problem, right? Accidents don't really lead to success very often.
They don't, man. They don't.
Yeah.
So, well, as it turns out, I actually am one of yours. I'm an accidental entrepreneur.
Right. Like a lot of
went
people.
to college, went to go, pursued corporate America. Had a couple of really, really great jobs that went, about 8-9 years.
Okay.
And kind of the last year of that journey led me to basically knowing I didn't want to work for somebody else, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. and I didn't even know what that would look like. Started a couple of small businesses. I was single, so I didn't need much money.
Right. Exactly.
And those actually led me to a career of all things, photography. I became a wedding photographer of all things. It's really weird.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's just, I loved photography, but I'd never owned a camera. And so I bought a camera with cashing in my 401k from my last job, all $13,000 of it.
Right.
And started shooting and actually fell in love with the thing that I loved. That led me on a 10-year journey of building an international wedding photography studio.
But you weren't, it wasn't like a hobby for you where you're taking pictures on the weekends and then you said, you know what, let's start a business. You said you never took pictures until that point. No,
I'd never owned a camera.
Okay.
So funny. I appreciate the question because it just jogged a memory.
Yeah.
I didn't have a job. I had a little bit of money.
Right.
But I knew I loved photography, so I was going to check it out. So I bought a camera, but I didn't want to just be like out not making any money. So I picked up a job driving town cars for rich businessmen.
Yeah, right.
And so I knew there'd be a lot of sitting time and waiting. And I live in San Diego. So while I was waiting for business people to show up from the airport, I'd go to the bay and have all my gear in the camera and I'd shoot night shots. That's kind of how this, and people go, oh, that's really cool. I love it.
Right.
And then people are like, well, do you take photos of people too? And I was like, well, sure.
Stay still.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have camera will shoot,
Right. Do you remember what you bought in those days? I mean, you go buy 110 Instamatic. Right.
It was then it was film. So there was no digital.
Right. There was film, of course. It was probably an SLR, right?
Exactly. It was a SLR and it was a EOS.
A Canon.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, EOS was Canon, right? Yep. Right, because when I was younger, we were into Konica and Minolta and what was just Konica in those days. Yeah. Olympus. Remember they had a camera?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was shooting film, and then people will you take, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll take photos of you, but I don't know how to do that, so there's no charge here.
Right. Yeah.
And then you know how it goes. You get a couple of good ones where people they tell friends and they're like, hey, I heard you shot my friend.
Yeah.
That sounds funny, doesn't it? You shot my friend.
Yeah. But there was no digital film. Like you had to, my grandfather was into this. When he died, I went through his house. He had a dark room. He had, remember those Raleigh box cameras, the one that you would like look down at? But he had one of those. I sold it to some collector. Yeah. And he would like hang that stuff in his basement. I remember when I was little in the dark room. You can't now you take pictures, you look at it, you can delete it and try again.
Yeah, I think those
do that then, right?
Medium format cameras, right? Isn't that that was a medium format?
Yes, I don't know, something. It was the film was like this long roll, and you'd have to roll it by hand.
Yeah, and you'd have to like you said, you'd have to look down,
hang on your neck, right, and the thing would flip up, and you'd see. Yeah, it was crazy, and you do a lot of black and whites that way, but you couldn't. So that must have been hard though, doing something that you loved but hadn't done before. You couldn't check your work until it was done in those days, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's hard.
On the flip side, it forces you to know your craft. That was the benefit.
Yeah, you got to be good at what you do.
You have to learn light the hard way.
Yeah.
And you have to learn your tool, which is the camera, the hard way.
Right.
So there's a good benefit there rather than,
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to go to a good old fashioned film lab. You take cans and drop them off, and you pay $10 per thing to have it developed, and then you go back 3 days later.
And how they developed it mattered too, right? I mean,
that's right.
Yeah. Because I knew some wedding photographers or clients, and they used some labs out in the Midwest, and they had some very particular labs that they would use that developed things a certain way that they wanted to.
Yeah.
It really was an art in those days. Now everybody takes a photo, they don't appreciate it.
There was the development style, and then there was also styles of film. So you could buy film that was on the warmer side, on the cooler side. You could, I think you mentioned you could buy black and white film,
right?
All that stuff. It's crazy. It's like the Dark Ages.
Yeah, it's like a lost world.
Giving away my age. Yeah.
Look, Garrett, we have. I know it's not even what we're talking about today, but we have these albums in our house with photos. I don't know what the hell to do with them. My mom's got them. I got them. And the kids. We've digitized a lot of them. But,
oh, did you? That's great.
Yeah, because I was afraid, what happened when your pictures when you're young? They like fade. I have a picture of me and my mom. I'm a little baby. There's 3 pictures. I guess it was done at one of those studios, right, where you go and they put you in a little car or whatever.
Yeah.
We did that too before the place went out of business. There was nobody going there anymore.
Okay.
It's been fading over the years. I don't know how to save it. It's gonna fade away. So
yeah. And you probably have a wedding album, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, those are. That was the photographer that used a special lab out of wherever.
Okay.
But,
okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they did some great stuff. But okay, so you're a photographer now because you got out of corporate America, which good for you because corporate America stinks.
Recovering in corporate America, yeah.
Yeah. Did you start to make money?
A little bit.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Right.
But after about a year and a half, I did, and that I think I accidentally fell in love with weddings.
Okay.
A couple of people said, "Will you shoot my wedding?" I was like, "I will, but I'm not going to charge you because I've never done it."
Right.
And then I was like, "This is freaking amazing! Everybody looks great. Everybody's happy.
They're all dressed up for your photos, right?
Everybody, you get to see people dance like you've never seen dance before. You see, you hear great speeches.
Yeah.
So it was really fun.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, you can charge a fair amount of money and make a good living.
Yeah, in wedding business, sure.
Right. So, and I was okay with all of the moving parts. So it ended up being serendipitously a really great fit and great transition.
Yeah, I would say a year and a half to get to the point where you're making money is not really that long. Like, right, if I'm talking to business owners, I tell them, if you come back to me and you complain you're not making money in 6 months, that's not enough time.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Especially since you didn't know, you've never done this before. You had to learn the business and learn the craft and everything.
Yeah. It's like planting a fruit tree, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Where's my fruit? Like, well,
dude, it's still a sapling coming out of the ground. You got to give it a year, 2 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Okay. All right. So what happened? So that was a service business. Like you didn't have like a huge staff, right? You had like probably an assistant at one point. And...
So it grew over time. So I think the getting in the first 3 years, it was just me, but it kind of took off. It hockey sticked. So started getting a lot of inquiries, more than I could handle, and I had to make the choice: do I raise my prices and create scarcity, or do I add more people? So I decided I wanted to grow. So I added a bunch of photographers, created a staff, put marketing campaigns in place to be a national brand.
Okay.
And of which very thankful for my corporate America days and all I learned through marketing and brand awareness and logistics and all that
had that
stuff.
Background.
That was very helpful. Yeah, that was very helpful.
Yeah, sure.
So that was great. I think over that almost 10 years, probably photographed 500 weddings, traveled the world. It was really wonderful.
Nice.
About 3 years though before that journey ended is when the film lab died and when the digital media showed up.
You overlapped that whole change.
Yeah, and it happened quick. It was sort of like AI. It was like, it was disruptive. It was an inflection point, true inflection point.
Right.
Film labs didn't have a chance. They shut down. Everybody's buying digital cameras.
Yeah.
And so as a studio, now we hit this really weird spot where you had to be, now you were both the lab and the photography studio.
Right.
So you had 2 businesses compounded into one, but there was no revenue on the lab side. It was just this additional cost center in money and time,
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that's not going to work.
And you had to change all your equipment, right? I mean, you can't just like start outputting digital pictures from a...
Yeah. We basically had a moment of silence for all the film cameras and moved into digital. And then, you buy all the software that goes with that. But now you have this huge workflow problem and huge bottlenecks because, with film, you could shoot a wedding with 300 photos, but with digital, it's going to be 7,000 photos.
Right.
Because
there's no paper. It's just boom, 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 boom.
You're just clicking away.
Plus, you don't have time. Like you figure, okay, we're done. Now we're sending it out to the lab. We can work on the next job.
Exactly.
It's like other businesses, even in law, like when email started coming, it changed the flow in and out. So if I had work to do, my uncle, who's 20 years older than me, 10 years, 15 years, he refused to use email for a long time, but he was forced to, because he would do work. He'd put it in the mail. He'd mail it out to a client. They'd have time to do the other work because it wouldn't take a while to get to the client and come back. Now people they think you're going to do it like right there when you send them an email, and you can't keep up with that flow. So I can imagine people were just like, well, are my photos ready? I mean, they're digital. Can we look at them tomorrow?
That's a great point.
Right?
That's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. Right. Of course, because people had an expectation of on demand, right? All available. We can do our album tomorrow and get it done. Again, it printed. We have it by Friday.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I forgot about that, but that was a real thing. So we had to flip the script and be strategic and start educating. You had to educate the clients to manage their expectations, which is a whole
Big
thing.
Time. Right. Because the last thing you wanted to do was go through 7,000 pictures Monday or Sunday morning or Monday morning right after an event all night, right?
Yep. That's right.
Exactly.
So the way we dealt with it is I was like, okay, we need to become now experts in being a lab. So I took one of our guys and sent him to Adobe. This is like brand new. They just released What was that?
No, I'm saying it wasn't a lab where you took paper and you put it into a tray with chemicals.
No.
Now it was a computer system that I guess just graphic designers were starting to use. I remember the early Adobe stuff.
Yep. And they came up with a product called Bridge. And I think it was just their way of saying, all right, you go from Photoshop to this new, edit photos in bulk rather than high retouch one at a time.
I see. Okay.
But then you had all these other complexities too, by the way. You had monitors. Your client had one kind of monitor. We had another kind of monitor. So we had to figure out what is monitor calibration and how do we make sure that what we see is what they're going to see. Ugh. It was messy, man. It was messy. Yeah. And how do you treat the photos with all of these new digital tools? And but that worked. It took a little while, but it worked. And then we scaled. Yeah. So we got through it. And then I began to watch everybody in my network and everybody in their network really struggle with this thing. I was like, wow, this is going to become an epidemic. This is going to be bad.
Well, because I'm sure most photographers are not computer guys.
Yeah, none of us were.
Technology people,
Yeah, I sure wasn't.
Yeah, right. And you came out of corporate America. So you imagine the guy who's an artist all of his life and he paints and he takes photos and he wants to do photography and he's got and then this changes. It's like I had friends, parents who were in the printing business, and when desktop publishing came around, which was about the same time, it just killed them because nobody needed their services anymore. They do it themselves. Nobody had a perception of whatever he did, and he went out of business. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff, man. Fascinating.
But that's society. Like those are inflection points where industries change, which is why what we're going to get into is so important, because I think the ones that recognize that change is the only constant that they have,
Truth.
Right, will be fine, right, and will survive. It's the ones that freak out that the phone companies just created automatic switching systems, and you're a telephone operator on the board, right, and you're obsolete, gone, not doing it anyway. Yeah. So and you got to get retrained, and maybe you're too old to get retrained, right? So,
and that that concept is hard for us humans.
It is.
This idea of accepting change as a constant and then having the gumption and the grit to ride every wave of change, especially as a business owner. Like that's, I think
those are the ones. What's the word we use now? Resilience from the pandemic. But look, let's take your industry, for example, or that industry, photography, for example, right?
Yeah.
There are people at all kinds of ages that are photographers. There's guys that have been in the business for 30, 40, 50 years.
Totally.
They did things a certain, right? Those kind of inflection points, they can't survive that because they're not going to go back to school and learn how to do computer, right? Graphics. And this is not going to happen. So
it's not going to happen.
It's really, it's not just saying I'm good with change. It gets to the point where you're over the fence and you can't come back and do the retrain. It's going to happen to us too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's happening already with some of the stuff I see my kids doing. I'm like, I'm not gonna, learn that. My sister, for example, is a very good artist. She's a graphic designer, but she learned on certain systems and then started doing other things. And if she went to go back to graphic design, I don't think she could do it now because the whole industry's changed and the computer systems are different and you got to learn the new software. And
yeah, that's a really interesting topic, Mitch.
Yeah.
Like, I think about that. I think the only way to continue to ride the wave, even as you get older, is you need to have committed to iterating quarter by quarter.
I agree.
That's the only way. Otherwise, to your point, the learning curve that you need to go through to catch up to the new models and the new ways, it's too steep.
Insurmountable.
It is insurmountable.
Right. And you know what? If you don't build in systems, which we'll get into a little bit, I'm sure, into your business where your business is saleable and transferable, you also have no way to exit.
Oh, yeah. None.
You just out of business. They're just obsolete. So if it's something that you could sell to the next person who's 20 years younger than you and does know and does have the time to learn and retool the businesses, so then maybe you got some runway to off into the sunset. I think it's something people have to start considering because things are changing very quick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. This is depressing.
Fearfully exciting.
I like that. That's an optimist's view. Fearfully exciting. Yeah. Well, they said that during the election, right? What would they say? We're nauseously optimistic. I think was the word that the people were using, at least on the Democrat side. Anyway, so all right, so we're still stuck now in the end of your tenure in the photography business, and the world's changing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, I saw that, and originally I was like, okay, well, here's maybe just a fun little opportunity to create a second channel of revenue.
Okay.
And I think partly my dad had instilled in me this thought process growing up. He would remind me almost militantly every year. He would say, son, remember, every 5 years, you should be prepared to make a significant change in your life.
Yeah.
So that you keep up. Whatever that is.
Your dad's a smart guy.
I really, he sent lots of great things my way. So that was me. I was like, okay, I probably am not going to be a photographer forever. I don't think I'll probably get bored, if anything. Right. So here's something that I know how to solve the problem because I already did it. And I wonder what it would look like if I solve it for what I can already see is going to be a giant industry problem in the domain. Yeah. And so partnered with a couple of buddies that were also photographers and launched the world's first digital media photo lab. And so now photographers, no matter where they were in the world, as long as they had an internet connection, they could come home from their wedding or their portrait gig and upload their photos to our business. Mm-hmm. And then we would edit them and then send them back digitally.
So it was like not DIY, but it was kind of like Shutterfly for professionals.
Well, it was really classic.
But you did the work. They didn't do the work.
Exactly. We did the work.
Right. So because at that point, the industry didn't have the skills. Most of them didn't have those skills to touch the photos.
99%.
Right? Yeah, that's why. So there was this break to do that because now they probably all the new young and up and coming photographers, they have those skills. Yeah.
Now these days. And so that's a fascinating topic too, by the way. But so here's what it was. It was they didn't have the skills, but they had to have the skills, but they didn't have the skills.
They had no choice, right? Exactly.
So
and there weren't services like Shutterfly yet or any of that stuff, right?
Yeah, and even Shutterfly wasn't an editing platform, it was a printing platform.
Right. It's a compilation. You can make a book, put it together. You can't fix anything, right?
Yep. So it was stage 3 in the workflow lifecycle. You shoot it stage 1. You have to edit it now, digital media, edit it stage 2, and then you push it to a Shutterfly or a SmugMug or all of these other,
right?
And that's where you get to see the finished images and then order them for print. But it was that second step that we all had to DIY because there was no solution.
Right.
But it was like trying to figure out how to fly a spaceship. Like these editing tools were very complex, very cumbersome, didn't scale.
Yeah.
It was really difficult. But like I said, we figured out how to do it. And so we were like, well, let's sell it. And
so that was a separate company. You started a new company.
That's right.
A tech company, basically, that built this site. It was all online and so forth. And that was your marketplace. Okay.
Didn't know it at the time. Didn't know it was going to be a tech company.
Right.
Turns out
it was, right? All technology.
Exactly what it was.
Yeah, of course. What did you think it was going to be? Like an artist community or something?
I like, honestly, Mitch, even then I couldn't even spell tech, much less really understand what it meant.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but you came from the corporate world. So if you're doing this, right, at this point, maybe not with the photography business, because that was more of a hobby that became, right? Did you write a business plan? Did you sit down and say, okay, this is the problem? Nope. No,
well,
did it.
Yes, but no.
Yeah, like you had things written down, but it wasn't that formal and
you write your goals, you know, but I don't think I've ever written a formal business plan.
Right.
You bushwhack. You know,
yeah, I mean, look, as you do it more, you get better at it. It doesn't have to be a formal business plan, but you do have strategic planning and you do put it together a certain way. And
that's right.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be graphs and charts. And
yeah.
But you do have to work out the financials of the business, right? And the marketing side of it. And
exactly.
How are we going to get this product to people and who do we need to run the business? Those are like the four main parts, you know? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All those things are covered. But you know, which I think we'll probably get into, underneath those four main parts are 100 different tiny parts underneath each bucket.
That's why success in this is very hard. I always tell people, look, those are the four parts, but that doesn't mean you stop building the plan or working the business, right? You got to keep drilling down.
You have to.
Yeah.
And then keep iterating and then continuously improving. And then, you know, chopping off the legacy, pruning the legacy, you're replacing that with the new, and it's a constant cycle, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, well, how'd that go?
It went pretty good.
Okay.
Extremely painful.
Right.
But it turned into, it is the business where I made most of my career revenue. And it culminated into, you know, employing over 550 employees worldwide.
It really grew.
It really grew. Yeah. Well, just because it turns out that everybody shoots photography in the world.
Right.
And the internet makes the world flat. So as long as we could get our message to anybody in the world and market to them, and of course, deliver on our value promise, then we had a business.
Now, what year was this? What's the time frame?
Yeah, that was so that was 2006 when I had the idea.
Okay.
And launched March of 2007.
Now, was the infrastructure it wasn't like I couldn't just upload a photo, right? Especially if it's a lot of data.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I'm suddenly all these stories are coming back.
Systems, right? Where you used to drop this stuff. I remember that. I don't know who I was working for at the time, but like large graphic files, they would drop this Dropbox now, but so, right? Mitch, the infrastructure wasn't there.
When we started, we couldn't use the internet. So we did not build the business using the internet. We built the business using kind of like what Netflix did, using mail. So you would ship us your hard drive, and then we had couriers all over San Diego, and we would send what at the time what we called our expert in-home lab studio team. They would go to your house because we hired you as an editor, and they would quality control your environment where you would edit because it needed to be quality controlled. And then we would set up hiding places when we had our couriers delivered hard drives that would ship into our headquarters, and we'd drive them to your house. We'd hide them under car wells, in bushes, in backyard dog houses. Yeah, it's crazy.
What are you talking about? There weren't like lock boxes or places where you...
No. Oh, no, that's too nice.
Like geocaching. You're like hiding these things with coordinates.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
So we had like 5 full-time drivers. That's all they did is they couriered these, we called them dot packages. And that's
there was no file transfer. What did they call it? FTTP, file transfer protocol or something like
FTP.
that?
FTP,
yeah. There was none of that?
Well, it existed, but the data was so large.
Yeah, because they're photographs, right? It wasn't like Word files or whatever.
Yeah, like nobody saw any of this coming, you know? So it really was, jumping out of the plane and building your wings on the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. But there probably wasn't a lot of competition, right? So who else? Yeah, right. At the time.
True. Yeah, it's true.
Okay. No, so you certainly saw it.
It took probably about 5 years of us slowly working into and growing with the internet.
Right. The technology started catching up.
Yeah. Yeah. And finally we got to a point where I paid $20,000 to our local internet provider to run fiber to our building.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer.
Those are like T1 lines and
exactly.
Right, huge pipelines.
Exactly.
Yeah. Before that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think you get up to T3, right? At some point, whatever.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that became a game changer. And then there's a bunch of really cool, fortunately, technological advances that actually happened at the application level, the software application level, and at the image level, where we could shrink a file size by 30 times and then transport that through the internet super fast without any loss or degradation to the native image.
Right. Like the early days of zip files, but yeah. Yeah, basically, right? You're compressing the data.
That's right, man.
Yeah, interesting. So did you, and then we'll take a break in a minute. Did you exit that business? Did you sell that business at some point?
No.
I
didn't exit it. It's still living today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You still own it?
But I've leaders running it.
Yeah, okay.
And
you're the chairman of the board.
That's
you no longer sweep the floors.
Right.
Yeah. Look, that's the ultimate business owner's dream, right? Well, I mean, selling is great, but if you're still running your business, you don't want to be the guy who's going to the general meetings on a day-to-day basis.
No. I guess it depends, right? It's contextual.
Okay.
But for me, no, I would agree with you just because of other opportunities and other loves and passions. And I think also at this stage, my skill sets are better suited for other ventures.
Some of the stuff you're doing now. All right. So let's jump on a couple of minutes of commercials, and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about, what you're doing now, operations, and how we can help people. All right.
Love it.
I'm going to mute you now then. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right. So we're back. All right. So we're talking about, we were talking about your photography business and how it evolved. And that was a good conversation, right? Because that happens in a lot of industries. And it's happening now. So, there's a lot of things change. Look what happened with the pandemic. Everybody's working from home now. You know, my children, I don't think they're going to have any idea. But one wants to be a doctor, so she'll go to a hospital or whatever. You got to do that in person. But even that industry, right? There's going to be a lot of telemedicine, not necessarily seeing people in person, ways to diagnose without literally being in front of people.
Oh, yeah.
But my son lives in New York City. His company's in Minneapolis. They have him travel sometimes, but for the most part, he works at a desk in his studio apartment in the city, you know?
Oh, it's so crazy. So disruptive. I mean, my family, we use Kaiser.
Yeah.
And they have pretty much gone to virtual appointments. They do basically FaceTime now.
That's Kaiser Permanente, right?
Yeah, right. You don't have to drive down to go see your doctor anymore. They just hop on a telecall.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that you're properly diagnosed, the efficiency of that is ridiculous.
Sure, like, assuming they don't have to touch you.
Yeah, that would be kind of hard if they want to feel a lump on your neck. You're like, how does that feel to you? It's a little soft. Okay, well, it's probably fine. They gotta watch that. Watch that thing. By the way, little known fact. I don't know if you know this. Is a little off the topic. Kaiser Permanente. Do you know where they started? They didn't start in healthcare. You know what one of their first companies were?
No.
They owned Willys. They were in the car business.
Come on.
Which they sold to Jeep, I think, at some point.
Come on.
Way back, yeah. And then they sold out again. They got into healthcare and they're a conglomerate, but
that is the strangest thing.
Is that crazy? I was listening to some podcast or something about it was probably a podcast about like Jeep versus Bronco or something like that.
It's like the epitome of a pivot.
Yeah. You like that, huh? Well, it came up, so it just popped in. I got ridiculous things in my head. So, so you keep running the conversation. Let's take this along, and I want to see where we end up.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, where are we at? We were talking.
Well, we were starting to get into like the stuff you're doing now and how you got into it. Like, there's got to be talk about a pivot. You got to move from right. There's got to be a bridge in between there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Sure. So, we talked earlier about our, employment scale, and that also came not only with people, but process. And that process sort of had two very critical path legs. Okay. One is just classic instructions, guidelines, general rails for what people do on the daily in all functions in the business, whether it's IT, sales, marketing, production,
operational guides, basically.
All ops,
All ops, right.
Okay. HR, but then there was the tech side and scaling tech and understanding all of those moving parts and how all of these pieces come together. And because that business was so unique, there was no roadmap for the business I was building.
Okay.
And which meant, sort of like when Lewis and Clark went west, they came up on and faced challenges that they had never heard of or seen, and so they had to figure stuff out on the fly.
Right.
And that ended up basically being the majority of my journey. Always facing, bears, Indians, floods that I'd never seen before.
No death in the wild, though, potential. So you're good there.
What was that?
You weren't going to die in the wild, so that was good.
It sure felt like it, Mitch.
I'm sure it did.
Sure.
No, but that's part of the journey, right? You were just at a weird time in, like if it was 100 years ago and you were a Luddite, you would be doing the same thing. So you were at a weird time. Right around like the late 90s into the early 2000s, there was a lot of things changing. And there were these transitional industries where, HR, everything was becoming more tech, related. And you didn't really know that stuff, right? Because your business, you said, did you say, 500 employees or something?
Yeah, 550, yeah.
Yeah. In one location? Or they were all over the place?
All over, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's hard to manage.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And you had no operational background? No? From corporate? No, nothing. Okay.
Nothing. No, I was in the beverage. My entire journey in corporate was, wine and juice.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
So I mean, I knew logistics ish.
Yeah.
I knew how to sell and manage. But so where I was going with that is, I went to the market to look for tools and I couldn't find them. And so I had to build my own tools. And really, the culmination of that was frameworks, assessments, systems, tools, and templates. And these all were just homegrown, and home built. But increasingly, I began to see clear, proven evidence that it worked.
Okay.
And worked really well. And that was pretty cool. Yeah, that was gratifying to see that. All right, with a little, some teamwork and some commitment, we can solve our own problems, so that this thing can achieve its vision and mission.
Okay.
And I had about 5 years ago, where we really kind of plateaued and saw really great success, at least for me. I had this epiphany, and it was based on a story I had learned from AWS, which Jasky told. He went to Bezos and he said, "Hey, we just spent a decade building these amazing e-commerce tools for Amazon, bespoke to Amazon, so that we could win. We should resell those tools to the market because I think the world could benefit, and so could those businesses." And that was the birth of AWS.
Yeah, I'm sure. And they already had the marketplace, right? So they had built-in customer lists.
Well, they had their pipeline for leads was nutballs.
Yeah, I think they're the leading web services company in the world now, right?
They are. Yeah. There's crazy. No doubt. There's no doubt. Yeah. Have you ever been to their reInvent conference in Vegas?
No, I would love to do that though.
Oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. But as it turned out, also, they were right. Those tools were agnostic, and domain agnostic, and I would say small, medium, and large size business agnostic. So if you're in tech, they had the entire suite of tools, and there's something in there that could benefit you that you could buy from them.
Yeah.
And that was my epiphany 5 years ago with the tools, the frameworks, all these things that I built for my digital media business. And as I began to kind of push in and drill in a little bit and look at the marketplace and business domains, my conclusion was the business world still continues to focus on sales, marketing, and leadership, and it continues to ignore ops.
Right. And
my hypothesis, and also my conviction, I'm biased, is that it is in the engine room, what I think it was Carnegie said, he calls it the engine room of success, which is operations, where the magic lives and where the power lives and where the rails live for scale and growth and ultimate success.
Yeah.
Because, it's an engine.
Right, of course. Well, I posit this, or offer you this thought, right? Are you a good leader if you're not really paying attention to ops, to your operations? Because you can't, I look at it, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I look at it as one goes hand in hand with the other. That's the biggest problem with leadership in small business, right? Yeah. They don't have operations. They're doing everything themselves. They're putting people in the wrong place because they don't have an operational structure and they don't have an operational, framework.
Yeah.
Or even belief, or, whatever. Their leadership is not good. They're not good leaders. People need to know what they have to do.
I feel like that statement, Mitch, deserves us being in a very large hall with a panel,
telling a lot of people, right,
and have a really great discussion about it.
Because you're leading a company does not make you a leader.
Yeah, and I would also argue, and this goes back to what I was saying a second ago. I don't think most of the business world amalgamates great leadership with great ops.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I agree with you.
And so I think most people would I agree with you, but I think most people would disagree with you in business that, if a leader doesn't pay attention to the engine room of success, then that makes them a bad leader, because most people and businesses don't define leaders based on operational competence. They get focused on, can a leader communicate well? Can they solve problems well? But I think the big lie, and I'm trying to expose the lie these days with Clarity Ops, but I think the big lie is chaos is normal. And inefficiency and waste and bloat, these are normal. Live with it and navigate through it, but don't solve it and don't attack its root.
Right.
I think that's the big lie.
That's the lie, right?
I'm looking to expose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I'm not suggesting that like a good leader has his hands in the engine room, take care. I'm saying he builds people around him at different layers.
Right.
It filters down to good operations.
Right.
And gets reported to. Not necessarily visits the boiler room on a regular basis. Maybe visits every once in a while. Right?
Sure.
The captain of what are these ridiculous cruise ships nowadays? These Royal Caribbean not-so ships?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is not going down to the engine room. I'm not saying he's never done that. I hope he's done that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's not going to do it on a regular basis. But that has to do with having competent people, right? And having, building a management structure and people that work for you. But that all feeds down operations. People knowing what they need to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, let's say quarterly basis, right? People that know what their job is and who they report to and what their role is in the company, which I think leads to better, employee satisfaction and right. And people take ownership and things like that. It's the leaders that are trying to lead the company don't do that. I think they lose. There's a disconnect because they're not in the engine room, right? Between the people that are working down there and shoveling coal into the engine and the guy who's out there like leading the company, gets all the the respect. And
so it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I agree with you I think I might be a weirdo.
It's pretty funny.
But as it turns out, part of this journey for me in terms of making the engine of a business akin to a Formula One car was, because I want to win.
Yeah.
But mostly I'm allergic to chaos. And
I just can't. It's too stressful.
It's too stressful.
And I'm constantly getting organized and constantly making lists. And then you lose control a little bit for a while. I got stuff on my desk. Then I got to go through it again, rebuild your systems like you said, or then you get a note that they're updating something that you use, some tool. And you're like, oh shit, that's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
And then I got to find a new platform or they change the fee structure. And I'm a small business and I'm like, you know what, that's just not cost effective. And I got to find a new platform. I got to go through 3 different tools. So that's always going on. But and then it makes me nuts. I don't sleep at night. I get stressed out,
Me too. It's because it affects your whole life.
You can't avoid it. Like it's always going to happen. So you just try to manage as best you can.
Yeah. So here's the rub.
Yeah.
Now that I actually am weekly, I'm proving my hypothesis as I now go out and work with companies hand in hand. My hypothesis continues to be proved, which makes me very happy.
Right, means you're right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so here's the rub. When great leaders who are well organized delegate to other leaders to build, maintain, and support the operation, the degree of expertise, even with highly paid managers that go into architecting what I would call great operations for high profit, sturdiness, speed, and control is the edge case. And this is in the wake of even very high revenues.
Right.
Now, so let's say revenues of 150 million.
Okay.
And more. And so it's really fascinating that when you have product market fit and you have a great business model, you can have a mediocre ops engine, which causes a tremendous amount of chaos, stress, low happiness.
Retention, nobody wants to be there, right?
High employment churn.
Yeah.
And the business still succeeds. But, and this is part of my journey, it is at the cost of humans.
Well, that's the problem, right? The business doesn't exist without humans. Corporations don't just operate in and of themselves. There are actually people that have started these things and go to work and whatever. So I think that if you have a fine-tuned company and all cylinders are firing on all levels, that does not mean that, you know, everything's working, we're making money, we're intense, whatever. If it's not good for the employees, I know that sounds very liberal, but you know, what's the point?
Well, I think that is the
right.
I agree with you. And by the way, I think Gen Z agrees with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do. I think Gen Z agrees with you.
Yeah, well, clearly, I mean, they are like my kids are like, they think, and I'm not sure if it's true, that there's no question that the companies need them more than they need the companies. And I don't think it's true, but that's their attitude. And it's probably a good attitude because I just had a woman on my podcast. I've had a few of them, but this one woman wrote a book, How to Be a Digital Nomad. And she and her husband travel the world. They do not have a home. She's a writer, like some sort of a writer. He also has some remote job that he can travel around. They don't have a home. They've had a child on the road. They have a child. They go see his parents in he's from Scandinavia, and she's from the United States. So they pick up their mail and they go to different places. But their entire world belongings, which they like the finite control of it, is basically in a suitcase, right, or a backpack. That's amazing. They travel the world because they want to live that kind of a life, and they've built it so they can do it. And one of her, that's how she gets paid.
That's amazing.
You're asking to write the book. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could do that, but it sounds exciting.
I couldn't, but
the chaos of just I love to travel and be places, but I would rather do it where I had, you know, everything. Somebody picks me up, takes me there, private jet, you know, that would be great for me. The whole other thing, you know, I'll tell you a quick story. It's going to make the podcast anyway. We were out in Tucson visiting my daughter's parents' weekend, and we're traveling back. And in Tucson, there's no good way to get from Tucson, probably from Tucson to San Diego, but not from Tucson to Newark Airport in New Jersey, right? So my wife gets an email that our flights have been canceled. And we're now booked through like Utah to LaGuardia Airport, landing like it was going to take like a whole nother day. We'd stay over a hotel, whatever. So I'm like, how is that possible? Like, what's going on? Apparently the rest of the world thinks that if you land in one of the 3 New York airports, you're within distance of each other, but it's not true. It's like a $300 Uber ride to get home from there. So that's not, might as well be Philadelphia, right? We find out that because the first leg from Tucson to Phoenix was delayed, we wouldn't have made our connection flight. So American just cancels you out, doesn't tell you, and rebooks the flight. Garrett, if I could tell, and I'm not a stressful kind of guy, I kind of take it. I can't even tell you how stressed I was. Like, we had to, you know, take the car. They're dropping to Tucson. We drive to Phoenix. We couldn't get on that plane. We got the last 2 seats. We were in first class because I paid some extra money to upgrade so we could sleep because it was a red eye. Got bumped out of that.
Oh my God.
And I'm still fighting with the airlines to get the money back. Like, I don't need this in my life that I want to have control over my clients' work. Yeah. This was just like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah. So we're still trying to get money back from the part of the flight that we weren't allowed on.
Unbelievable, man.
And customer service. Yeah. So I don't deal well with, and it all worked out. We got home, you know, on the flight and everything. But yeah, I can't do that. And I don't feel like you're efficient, like the company's really doing well when it's not, you know, when you don't have a grip on organization of what's going on. Because stuff happens that you don't know about.
Yeah.
So it's too late.
It's and that story is like we both probably would agree. I think you'd agree. Also crosses paths with core values and what the company believes in and stands for, and specifically how they want to treat their customers.
Yeah.
And what's important to them. And then does that get carried out through leadership all the way to the front lines?
Yeah, exactly.
Clearly they don't care.
This guy freak out. Who cares? We just got to fix the system. We got 2 people that are going to be stranded here. We're going to get them here.
Yep.
That's our rule. Then we'll send them an email after. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You know, it was like an hour to get through to them, to even talk to them. So yeah. So I can't even imagine. But do you come into companies and it's just like total chaos? I mean,
totally.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. And I think that is the thing. By the way, I want to clarify. The reason it satisfies me is because I've spent now a significant amount of time investing in and building up Clarity Ops, all based on this premonition, on this hypothesis.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm so happy I'm here to help you guys because every time I have a new engagement, I reinforce the message. I know your revenue is great and everybody else is full of anxiety, but this is normal.
Yeah, it is.
This is
Unfortunately,
normal. We're going to solve it,
Right.
And what's fascinating about the solution and the breakthrough is you get a twofer, Mitch.
Yeah.
You get scale, increased revenue, high happiness, right? Low stress,
Right.
employment churn goes down.
Right, because they're satisfied. They're happy to be there. They
And
want
then
to
a whole
stay.
host of other benefits come along with it as they relate to the success of the business, which is fascinating. I was going to comment Gen Z.
Yeah.
I think the thing about Gen Z is they have had a heart and mind change.
Yeah.
They watched prior generations win at the cost of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now they're like, I'd rather not have a job than be subject to having to live in constant stress.
Yeah. It's just not
worth
it.
And be paid for it.
Right. Yeah. You can't pay them enough. Right.
Yeah, right. Because that's what ends up happening. You get compensated to stress out while you're at work, and then you don't get compensated to take that stress home with you.
Right.
And I think that is, in my opinion anyway, I think that is the big heart and mind shift with Gen Z.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe it's because of the tech industry or whatever, they started realizing that you can actually have a job and be like happy about it and be satisfied. Right.
Yeah.
Our older generations before us, you worked and you go to the company and, that's kind of like was the perception of work, even through the media and movies and things like that. So I think, and I think the pandemic pushed us like 15 years ahead of where we would have been. That would have taken 15 years to get there. It just like jumped all because, we didn't have all these tools, these connectivity tools now where you can work from home. Now it's easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
We all do it. So yeah, I think that, if you want to be successful, maybe this isn't always true, but I think it's important for society and from my point of view, you should be branding your company, not just from a consumer standpoint and a customer standpoint, but from an employee attraction standpoint. I know a woman she does employment, like recruiting and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things she does with her clients is first teaches them how to brand their company for the employee, because that's what Gen Z looking for, right? They want to know what kind of an environment I'm coming into, can I work from home? Am I going to have a good time? Is this going to be like, I think salary is probably the last thing they ask about, right? They want to know they can pay their bills, but they also want to know that it's not going to suck to work at this company. That's really, so that's what she does. And she says it's important. And the smart employers realizing that if they want to attract and retain people, they got to build a culture that does that. And that matters.
Yeah. That totally 100% resonates with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long you've been doing all the operational stuff?
Yeah.
Was it always Clarity Ops from the beginning when you started the company?
Yeah. Clarity Ops. So, hitting the ground, engaged, serving clients about 2 years.
Okay. That's a newer venture for you.
Still new. Yeah. Still new.
How many clients have you brought through the door that you've worked through your process so far?
9.
Okay.
And that doesn't, those are, completed. That doesn't include the current engagements.
Got it.
But I am still continue to be fascinated by the truth of it. And I think it coincides with the 9 in 10 businesses go out of business stat that most businesses are in shambles internally.
Yep.
And it's a rough road, and it's operationally, it at the root of it, it's operations. It's always management of expectations, and what people do, how they do it, and having controls around those. And, Mitch, the fascinating thing is everything is complex if you don't understand it.
Oh, for sure. Because you're in a black box and you don't know what you're dealing with.
Yeah. The good news is there are basic principles that solve these things. And it's, if you apply them, they work like magic.
That's the irony of this whole thing, because I do know that there's basic principles, and you and I know them because we've been dealing with this stuff a long time, some of which I figured out as a lawyer, some of which you figured out as a business person. But people still fail and struggle. They don't spend the time, to learn. Like, from an operations standpoint, if you want to someday build value and sell your business and exit your business, your operations have to be spot on. Your people have to know what they're, where they're sitting on the bus and how to do things. If you want to scale your business, that's the quickest way to fall on your face, is to try and scale a business that operationally is not ready to do it. I was talking to somebody earlier. There was a guy I met. I don't know if he's been on the podcast or I interviewed him. He let's say coaches. I don't know, use that loose word, right? People for scaling. Like he's a scaling guy. So he comes in to scale. There's people that he won't take on as clients because he says, you are not ready to scale. And I don't do that. Like maybe if I can figure out who it is, I can connect the two of you.
All right, sure.
He doesn't do that. He doesn't do operations. You have to have the operation in order to scale. So it all comes back to, and I think your hypothesis is correct. It all comes back to the operation of your business. And when you get started, that's why you write a loose business plan, because you need to have operational manuals for, product development, sales, personnel, marketing, and finances. And then those all drill down and develop in other things. And if you have all those operations, people are working together and they understand what it does, what it's supposed to do. They are happier, definitely. And you can then do those other things like scale or sell or exit or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
The guy's 95 years old. He says, I want to sell my business. And it's showing no profit because he's running all kinds of expenses through for most of his family. And you're the business broker now trying to convince the buyer all these, what I call magic math. You're going to add back things into the business to create like profits that didn't exist before, to buy this business instead of it being a fire sale. Yeah. It's hard. And I think you just keep, what do? You just keep preaching the good word, right? I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. You'll never run out of customers. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, based on, the evidence, the answer is we'll never run out of customers.
No way. People are not going to all of a sudden learn from you and they're all going to wake up and start doing things properly. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You could write a book, and I tell attorneys this too. There's nothing wrong with giving away how to do things, because nobody's going to start writing contracts because you taught them how to do it. Nobody's going to start fixing their companies because you put out a book. If you follow my book, you'll be, your company will be fine and people will buy the book. You probably should do that. You write a really good book on operations and how it fits in everything, right? I'll do a forward for you, whatever. And it still won't put you out of business. Like that's the irony, right, of the whole small business market. You can give away everything. Yeah. There's no way it's going to put you out of business. Just not going to happen.
Yeah. Rarely, if ever, will anybody take any of that information and go be productive with it the way you would.
And if the people that will, they can find it other places anyway, and they probably wouldn't be your customers to begin with. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. The people that are going to talk to me and then use LegalZoom were never going to be my clients to begin with. Yeah. So who cares? Just help them.
One of the best investments I ever made early on was I hired a full-time consultant for, when I say full-time, is we met with him 1 week out of a month for probably 7 years straight.
Oh, wow.
And that was honestly probably a critical path to our success. Because I do think we all need advisors that know what they're doing and coaches to, I love what Jeff Weiner said. He said, my job is to be the chief reminder officer.
Yeah, that's a good term. I like that.
I thought so. I thought so. Because, when you're leading a business or you're a leader in a business, we have so much distraction and crises and problems that we're dealing with. And it's really easy to get knocked off, to get knocked off the stand, and to have somebody there that is not emotionally attached, that can step back. They're not all tangled up by all of the moving parts.
Of course,
it's so valuable.
Yeah, no, emotional attachment just clouds your vision.
It's honestly, from having been an operator for 25 years, it is so refreshing to now go in and help businesses, and I get to play that role,
right?
And go, oh my gosh, you guys, I can see it. Don't worry,
right? Because you got the stress and anxiety that they have that clouds.
Exactly.
They can't see
it clouds your vision
all the time, and they just, just see plaid every day, and that's all they see.
Yeah. And so earnestly, I purpose to cheerlead because I'm like, you guys, this is so solvable. We're going to, one client we just engaged with 6 weeks ago, we're recovering on the pace to recover $2 million from their gross profit soon.
Wow.
And that's just because their internal ops were so tangled up. Their org chart was upside down, all twisted around.
Yeah.
And their finance people are trying to solve it with a P&L and, using financial metrics. But all that does is tells you where to go cut, or rearrange. It doesn't solve the operational problems,
Very good. Very good.
Super fun.
I'm sure you and I can talk for hours about this stuff because
maybe we should.
I definitely want to stay in touch. I can tell you that. What's the best way for people to learn from you and connect with you and learn about Clarity Ops? Are you big on LinkedIn? Your website? What is it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. LinkedIn is great. My handle is my first and last name, Garrett Delph.
Okay.
And then the website clarityops.co.
Okay. CO. Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of content there and contact page and all that fun stuff.
All right, good. Well, we'll put links in the show notes, and I guess from our conversation, there's a book in there somewhere, so you definitely have to put that on your
you got to hook me, man.
List. Yeah,
you
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, Garrett, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me. Yeah. We'll go to credits and just stick around a little bit.
Thanks so much, Mitch. Really appreciate you having
me. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.